Hello, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be looking at painting a Sigmarite Mausoleum in a sandstone fashion, and we're going to be using mainly washes and contrast paints and dry paints to do this. So first we undercoat everything with Wraithbone and prepare everything, and then I went over all the skulls using the contrast paint. Skeleton Horde would be the contrast paint. So you get your Reikland flesh shade straight from the pot. Normally you'd water this down, but today, because we're putting it over Wraithbone and using it as a technical paint, like a contrast paint, we're painting it, slopping it straight on to the scenery itself. Wouldn't recommend this with a miniature, but scenery you can get away with a lot more because the angles, the detail don't tend to be quite as fine. So we make sure we catch the edges. I tend not to paint the bottom of mine because no one ever sees them and it just gets scuffed up and marks things anyway. Because this is a desert, and this is the stone that the desert is made out of, generally the sand in a desert is made out of what the stone was, so we can get away with just using the Reikland flesh shade across the rubble at the edge of the walls as well. Once we get all this done, we're going to move on to dry brushing it, and we'll see that in just a second. Now I'm leaving the iron gates off the gatehouse of the mausoleum because I already have this set from the Warcry version, which I've done in black with Mechanicus Standard Grey, etc, etc, and that already has gates on it, so I want this to be a bit different. And you can see that I'm just filling in some of the white areas and making sure that everywhere is going to look like it's had paint on it. Again, straight in the pot, straight on the model, using a relatively large brush but not too big so I don't swamp the model all over. And one thing I would say is always make sure that you clean your models, because I didn't, and now I've got a big mould line that I'm going to need to go back and clean. Slopping on heavy on the rocks on the top because they're going to be heavier stone. It's not likely to have gathered as much dust because that's where the wind blows across, whereas the dust tends to catch on the inside of walls, etc. And again, trying to avoid the skulls so I don't need to go back over them with Wraithbone. Contrast paints, and the way we're doing this with the Reikland flesh wash means that we want to be as neat as we can, because fixing errors is a bit more laborious, because no matter where we are on the model, if we need to fix the error, we need to start from Wraithbone again. So for dry brushing, we're going to use Terminatus Stone, which is quite a light sandy coloured dry paint. The trick with dry paints is you use them straight from the pot as well. I've seen a lot of discussion online about watering them down. Don't do that. That's not what they're for. That's not how they've been formulated. You dip your brush straight in, the dry brush preferably, and wipe off the excess on a cloth. Test it on your thumbnail to get the desired amount of paint on the brush, and then dry brush. Now, dry brushing is a technique that deposits large amounts of pigment on the raised surfaces of an area. And what you want to do is draw the bristles across briskly so that you hit the edges and deposit pigment at the edges instead of try to get it in the cracks. So the Reikland flesh shade is in the cracks and is providing the shade, and the dry brush is providing the relief, the 3D effect, if you like. It can be as subtle or as stark as you like it. Because these colours are quite similar to each other, it's going to be quite a subtle colour change, but that's in fitting with the theme of a dried out, dusty desert. If you get some places, like on that flagstone there, where the Reikland flesh shade is a little bit too strong, what we do is we just get it in there and smash it with a dry brush, kind of stippling it on, and that will take off the edge of the Reikland flesh shade. So once you've done this, it's time to then start moving on to the detail, which we will cover in the next section of the video. Now notice here I'm trying to avoid the skulls where possible, but if I do hit them, it doesn't matter, because the skulls would have dust on them as well. And the spikes and gates we're going to cover later in the video as well. They're going to be painted to resemble metal, which wouldn't be rusted, because this is a desert and has very low moisture content, so the metal is going to be dusty but not rusty. And here I'm really emphasising the uprights, the pillars themselves, to show that they're a slightly different stone, and it adds a little bit of a 3D effect to the piece top of what we already have. This will be made more accentuated when we add another wash later on. Sometimes with dry brushing you need to go back and add an extra wash.